All right. It looks like we are live. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Welcome to the Ordinance Committee meeting for Thursday, October 21st, 2021. Tracy, if we could have the roll call, please.
Councilor Johnson.
Here.
Council Hamel.
Here.
Council Katarina.
Here. Could we have approval of the minutes from September 16th?
So moved.
Council,
Yeah, go ahead.
Councilor Johnson.
Yes.
Council Hamel.
Yes.
Council Katarina.
Yes.
Thank you.
And do we have anyone from the public who wishes to speak?
We do. Allison, you should be all set to speak if you want to mute yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Allison Bristol, 6 Bayview Avenue, and I'm just calling in to say thank you for the amendment to the fireworks ordinance last spring. I'm happy to report we had a blissfully peaceful fireworks at Higgins Beach, and I can't thank you enough. It really made for a lovely holiday.
Well, thank you, Allison.
That was from the heavens.
Yay.
Anything
Thanks.
else,
Yeah.
Allison?
Anything else, Allison?
No, I'm looking forward to the conversation. Maybe I'll have something for next time.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye-bye. All right. So we were going to do the 5G, but because of planning and Jamal leaving and poor Jay's just totally overwhelmed, we've decided to push that back. So what I would like to do today is, since we did have the time booked out, is talk about fireworks, speaking of fireworks, and then discussion on the good neighbor ordinance. So let's just have a freewheeling discussion, I think, on what we think. And I'll just start with the fireworks. As you know, I was pushing for total ban on fireworks in the whole town, and I didn't manage to get it, at least a little tiny piece of the town. I know I heard from folks at the time that were from different parts of town that were like, well, how come Higgins Beach doesn't have to have the fireworks, but we still do? And I heard from a number of people on that. So I would just like to hear your thoughts, either of you. Go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah, I felt that however well-intentioned that our last set of revisions fell short, in spite of the comments just this evening from Allison about it being successful. It's one of these things, I think without a complete ban, we're going to be forever debating over what's the next line to draw. And this is one of those things where we kind of know where it's going to end up. And although I like fireworks, but I know we have enforcement issues. I think it would be simpler, and I think it could be more equitable to just eliminate them altogether. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
It's not my final position, but that's kind of where I'm leaning right now.
Okay. Mr. Johnson?
Sorry about that.
I was
This is
gonna
like
say-
deja vu all over again. Well, I have a differing opinion on this.
Okay.
Okay, I do still support the ban at Higgins, not because it's Higgins, but because of the fragile ecology, okay? But we do have other areas that are similar. So I think the balance, and I'm gonna take the balance approach, is that we do try to safeguard the sensitive endangerment of our ecology, including, from grass to birds, but still allow residents who want to participate in responsible fireworks on the days that are designated to do so. So I know we tried to do a boundary line of Route 1. I actually thought that was pretty good, but that didn't last. So I'm not sure where we are with this. I don't, at this moment, I wouldn't support a complete ban. Even though I personally don't don't like them, don't use them. But, you know,
How's your dog like them?
my dog actually is one of the rare ones. We go sit at the hill at the beginning of
that's a
Memorial
bummer.
Park and he loves to watch them.
Interesting, yeah.
Yep.
Because I hear a lot from dog owners.
Correct.
And other pet owners.
I have friends and neighbors who say the same thing. Right.
I mean, I, again, and see, you guys absolutely represent the two
Yep.
sides of the argument. And if you recall, I thought we were gonna get that Route 1 line also, which I thought made perfect sense. I mean, that would have been something I could have lived with for sure. But for some reason, there were a couple of people who spoke about, oh, we do neighborhood something and this and that, and then people, I guess, felt badly for them, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, if you-
I just remember when the fireworks, it was 2010 when a previous governor came in and
Right.
did it. And prior to that, Maine was known for not allowing fireworks, period, in the
Right.
whole state for forever, as far as I know.
Right.
Personal fireworks, I should say. You can have professional fireworks, but as far as, you know, being able to take, you know, shoot off whatever, whenever, you know, never. Yeah, go ahead, Don.
So it seems like there are three choices, you know, or four maybe: do nothing, redraw the line, you know, and there's the question about what that line should be, or if it's a line or circles, or it's a map, maybe it's luminous, hopefully, so the police can look at it at night when they're trying to, you know, find the fireworks that have blown off that are, you know, and the crowd is dispersed before they ever get there. Or, you know, or we kind of end up with the inevitable, I think, is just to, you know, that's going to go away completely. So I just think that every time we fall short of doing, either leave it alone and, you know, repeal the thing, or just, prohibit them entirely,
Mhm.
I think we're going to be batting this thing around forever.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you recall the conversation, though, I thought we had some pretty general consensus on the permitting part. Similar to a burn permit, when you go to do a burn permit, we got resistance from our public safety folks.
Oh, great.
And we really didn't drill into the whys on that. So maybe we could have Chief Thurlow, before he retires or something, come and give us some input. Because burn permits work. I've got dozens myself. And, you know, they can actually, when you get the burn, if you've ever done it, they'll tell you, they know the wind
Right.
factors at the time.
Right,
They know your location.
right.
And they can say yes or no and tell you why if it's a no. I think very similarly, we could keep Higgins off, you know, totally out. Maybe then even go the 1,000 feet on the offshore.
From the ocean,
Okay,
yeah.
but in the permitting will take care of it, because I know there was a concern about how do you gauge that 1,000 feet? Well, it's very easily to do with a map at the fire department. You come in for a permit. Where do you live? Where's the permit? Nope, that's not within the guidelines. You cannot have one. And then again, anytime the police get a call at the times that they're allowed, the first question is, do you have a permit? If you don't have a permit, you're illegal. If you do, then the assumption is you will fine because you did the permit process.
So I have a question to
Mhm.
clarify. Currently, the way the ordinance is written, all of Scarborough, with the exception of the ocean side of Spurwink Road,
Right,
beginning at the intersection of Black Point Road and Spurwink Road to the Cape line.
yeah.
So that's the only place where they're allowed now, is that
Where they're not allowed.
they're not allowed.
That's the Higgins. so
Okay,
the Higgins Beach
all right.
corridor.
So you'd be willing to just add the permit, and then otherwise people can do that anywhere. Yep.
Right, and
Yep.
if we do compound that with maybe trying to pull it 1,000 feet or a quarter mile from the ocean, as suggested by several environmental groups.
Yeah.
You know, because again, Tom Paul mentioned, it was very valid. How do you enforce that? Well,
Yep.
You wouldn't have to enforce that. All that is verified up front with the permit.
So my fear is that I think that if we do that, I mean, it would make sense, and that seems like a pretty clean way to do it. the rub is that, Eddie, I don't think this would take care of the areas that Eddie Wooden referenced in terms of nesting
That's
areas.
correct.
There will be other nesting areas, other wildlife areas that people will bring up along the way, that will go way beyond, this little spot. So
That's why you go for that, just ban them.
kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
that's-
I feel the same way because
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so Higgins Beach has this whole cutout. But then you've got Pine Point, because I did hear from a number of people down in Pine Point who are concerned about it. Because Old Orchard does not permit personal fireworks
No,
at all.
but if you walk the beach,
I'm not,
there's that's one contiguous war zone, okay, from the pier down.
Yeah, whatever, but I'm just saying. Yes, and Mr. Gallagher's been flagging me here.
Sorry.
So on the subject of permitting, we did engage Chief Thurlow and Chief
Right.
Moulton in a discussion about that. And Chief Thurlow did submit a number of considerations and concerns with the permitting process. I'm happy to share those. We can talk about those bullet points if that will help inform the discussion on that issue. Is that something that we're agreeable to do?
Yeah, if you could remind us.
I just recall the no.
Nope. Chief Thurlow has never once just said no. So this is the conversation. So the first bullet point there, the online burn permit application we use is a third-party service specific for that use in accordance with state forestry regulations. It isn't something we can modify or use for fireworks permitting. The reason the burn permit process works is backed up by scientific data analysis conducted daily by the Maine Forest Service during the season. They conduct samples, evaluate weather conditions, forecast, and establish a class day, which is an objective scientific determination of the relative safety to allow open burning. None of that would be available or necessarily applicable to fireworks uses. There's a big difference between a consumer fireworks discharge and an open fire. We don't have staffing at fire stations to issue paper permits, and even if those stations that are staffed, there are several hours a days when there's no one there to issue a permit due to calls, training, details. It'd also likely be a burden on dispatch to issue them on top of their very busy existing workload. Issuing permits in advance defeats the intended purpose of not issuing them when it's too windy or dry due to perceived increased danger. Revoking a previously issued permit is usually an exercise in frustration, or if even possible, with many non-resident visitors. It is too subjective to have our staff decide the suitability of a particular address site, and an on-site inspection evaluation would be difficult to take on. Granting a permit suggests approval permission, and we're concerned with that could include some level of liability should there be a mishap. That's one of the reasons we didn't include a permit in our current ordinance, instead went to a notification form. We're concerned about the 1 mile limit from the ocean. How is that to be measured? It would be much easier to use a clear landmark like Route 1, which obviously we've had some discussion on, Eastern Trail, the railway, that Amtrak shares, or something like that, which is clear to all.
Yeah, I remember now, these points that he made, and I'm just gonna speak frankly here. I thought some of them were dodges, but that's my opinion.
Sorry, no.
But
Yeah,
one thing I wanted to point out is that, and sorry to interrupt you, you're about to say something.
I was gonna
Okay.
say, like, he was gonna go with, I mean, God love the chief. Yeah, we don't have staffing in all the fire stations, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you require people to come up to
Yeah.
here to get them, not here town hall, but public safety to get them, that eliminates that. I know when I was talking about the permitting in the past, I was like, well, it gives us a chance to, if the weather forecast is such that we're in a drought, for example, then none would be issued or you can't use them. But I don't know. I don't think it would be that difficult to do it if you had a clear delineation. But again, I would prefer just ban them altogether, because then you don't have all this stuff. Well, that's me. Go ahead, Dawn.
So the thing that's interesting is that, we're trying to we're talking about patterning after the burn permit areas, the burn permit process. A fire is a lot different than fireworks.
Unless it sets a fire.
Fires last for a longer duration than fireworks, even the big ones.
Right.
The big fireworks. So there's that issue. There's also the issue that, and this is illustrated, I think, by the very thoughtful and thorough response from Chief Thurlow, who's in charge of, fire prevention, protection in town. Even he is not, in favor of putting themselves in a position of having to enforce this because it is so difficult to enforce. And how many summons have we ever issued for fireworks use in town?
Not that I know. of.
So anyway,
I mean, and you're gonna get people who are gonna do it
Yeah.
regardless of what the rules are, but if it's,
Right.
to me, if it's black and white and there's no
Yeah.
gray, it's
Yeah.
easier. The message is clearer,
yeah. And
and you'll
I'm,
less have to have people trying to,
and I'm not advocating civil disobedience using fireworks here. I'm not advocating that. So but this is sort of a good example of where we like to think that we have a better ability to really manage this when in actual fact, it's prevalent. Even if we were to eliminate it altogether, it wouldn't be entirely quiet on those 4 nights of the year or other fireworks times of the year. So
So how far you want to beat this dead horse?
I was just thinking that.
It's unfortunate. Well, I shouldn't say it that way, but we created an ordinance.
Yeah.
Instead of saying no, we created an
Right.
ordinance.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we have to do.
right,
Okay? And over the years, people have gotten used to, and several councils have expressed that they use fireworks.
One
So-
that I know.
Right, but so people do. So just to deny everybody without some kind of path forward is, I don't think it's the way it is.
Well, they don't have a Second Amendment right, Tyler.
I understand. I forgot, because remember, when I used to get burn permits, you physically had to come get
Yes.
a permit. We migrated now to the main state
Yeah.
online permitting process, so I
Right.
did forget about that.
the thing that's interesting is that, so we had a 4th of July and it seemed like it wasn't that bad. I mean, I don't know, we
You know
didn't hear a
why?
lot of noise.
Do you remember the
Um,
weather?
I
I
did
do.
not remember that.
It was raining.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
horrible, it was a terrible weekend because it'd been
Oh,
all
yeah.
really nice
yeah, I
and then
remember.
July turned into
Yeah.
this.
And that's why.
And
That
that's
was-
part of it. So we don't really have a good test of Higgins Beach. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't the normal hot, nice, sunny, whatever weekend either.
But in spite of those nights where it's permitted, I can't tell you and there's a lot of fireworks that go off around other dates and not just those 4 days that,
I
you
haven't
could-
heard them at my house.
had your eyes closed and weren't looking at the calendar, you wouldn't be able to tell what day it was. So this is a sort of good example of what, the road to disaster is paved with good intentions. We try as we might, we try to be fair and even-handed, and, even with that, it's still not, it's better, I think, but not perfect, so.
I don't, frankly, I don't see it as a burning issue to be brought back to the
Good one.
council at this point.
Burning is nice.
It's not. a burning issue.
Well,
Okay,
it's,
thanks, thanks.
What's the next legal holidays? Christmas, is that correct?
New Year's,
Yeah.
New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
New Year's?
it's two nights, right?
Yeah.
New Year's Eve and New Year's, night.
It's,
Is it?
yeah, New Year's Eve is one of them, because that was kind of a traditional.
And
People setting
New
off.
Year's Day.
3rd and 4th and December 31st
Yeah.
and January 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, those 4
Yeah.
days.
So maybe come February time, we bring this to this committee one more time. Have Allison please call in for a check-in. She would. See if it was also quiet on.
Oh,
Worst case scenario, it's snow. Because I remember 4th of July, I was supposed to do that police cruiser ride on that.
oh, yeah,
And they called me, and said, again, it's downpour.
yeah,
There'll be no action.
yeah. Yep. So, all right. You guys good talking about that for now?
Yeah, I don't think it
don't think it's
rises to the
immediate.
level of
No.
doing more.
Okay. Next topic is good neighbor ordinance, and I don't remember who wanted this on here, why. Ken.
Nor do I.
Oh, was it you?
I'm sorry. We should tighten it up, just to refresh your memory.
We did say that, but I
But
can't, now that you
tighten
mention
what?
it, I don't remember what part needed tightening.
Well, then it wasn't that important.
Yeah, you know,
Well, if I may,
Yeah,
I think this always comes to focus when we issue an amusement permit, because there's the balance between the amusement permit and the good neighbor policy. So
yes.
even though they're totally separate, I think that's what drove the interest in maybe revisiting this.
I think you may be right. now that you're
So
saying
let me,
that.
I, now it's coming back to me now. There was definitely that issue, but it also occurred to me that it was one of those things where we actually have stepped up enforcement. I think this past summer, we certainly did that at Bailey's. We started, recording incidents. We actually gave out a summons the first time we had done that. So that's also a change that perhaps, maybe helped to improve what we thought was a gap.
Because maybe Tom would know, or Lynn would know, outside of something around an amusement permit, do we ever get good neighbor policy violation complaints? Oh, we do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do we know what the pattern typically is?
It's usually complaint driven. We've done lighting, noise complaints certainly fall within that. I wouldn't say that it's extensive complaints, but it's nice to have something on the books to enforce when they do.
And how about odor? Odor does not fall underneath this?
No,
I do so, no.
no.
Lighting was the more recent addition.
Right.
Yeah.
We had neighbors that had their lights going across property lines.
So I think the odor issue that we had was really focused on, marijuana
And we addressed
processing,
that.
and that, I
got
think we've
addressed.
nailed it, at least so far.
I don't see anything that needs to happen in this at the moment either.
Well, either that or possibly if we could get for a different day, maybe some of the complaints, see if it's a pattern, and see if there's something we go in and check out.
As I recall, the most recent addition was adding, it's kind of the interplay between the good neighbor ordinance and the special amusement permit process. The good neighbor ordinance was in place and it was introduced and made a part of the special amusement
Right.
process. It requires, as I recall, applicants to affirmatively
Right.
indicate whether they would comply or they needed exemption from. And that's come up countless times with the number of permits that have been in front of you. I think that was a good improvement of the special amusement process, frankly.
And to segue that in, maybe for a topic of other discussion, I had a quick discussion with Tony about the possibility of the people that are actually sponsoring the amusement are the ones that come get the permit. Well, I thought maybe to kick around is the actual performer at the event also be permitted, which could be tied to the special permit of the sponsor. That way, because you're there as a performer, your sponsor says, crank it up to level 10, they're gonna do it because you're there being paid by the sponsor. And if you've also signed into a permit, understanding the rules and regulations of the town, just an added step. I think that might be something, excuse me, for a different topic for a different day.
What you were looking at is making the vendor, the performer, responsible for their noise also.
Yeah, so it's
So to
two
speak.
layers.
But do we know if that has actually been a problem where a performer has disobeyed, the owners? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I don't think the performers care about our ordinances because they're not exposed to them or have to sign anything. They go to wherever, and if the sponsor says, I want it on level 10, you're gonna do it at level 10 because he's paying a bill. But if you've signed on to it, if you've signed for a permit, and you understand the good neighbor policy or the noise levels, you're gonna think twice. I would.
So I agree with the logic there, but what we're missing are incidents. So, and I'd rather kind of go with incidents. I mean, we've kind of done that in other areas. So I would just, that's one way to approach it. I'm not married to that, but that's maybe another angle.
Yeah, with all due respect, I wonder if it's a problem searching for a solution, searching for a problem. And I say that with all due respect. I think one of the challenges would be, I suspect the entertainers, the difference is an establishment is physically located in our town. We have better opportunity to communicate and understand and so on and so forth. Whereas the entertainers, could be out of state, out of the country for all we know. So I think just getting that word out to entertainers that they need to also have a license and abide by certain rules. I guess secondarily, I think these are somewhat idiosyncratic. Yeah, there's some standards that would apply in terms of no amplification or, no noise audible at certain lengths or distances, like property lines. But there's also things that matter depending on the establishment itself, in terms of proximity to neighbors. And so I'm not sure if you can apply the same standards to the performer that you can to establishments. But I understand your point.
Yeah, and I talked to Tony about that. How do you let the performers know that? And it would be inherent in the event, in the person that's applying for the special permit. Okay, now, case in point, we had somebody that were named nameless here for amusement. They had brought some amusement on without a permit, and the response was, "What the hell, $100? It's worth it." So again, that vendor had their performers perform with no repercussions. But if it was two-folded, it might be, again, maybe a discussion at some other time. I think this summer might have been a little better.
Yeah, it was. I would say so.
Yeah. So maybe, like you said, maybe it's a solution looking for a problem.
Well, I guess the cautionary note, and I'm capable of this too, is that it's always tempting to kind of model legislation around kind of worst offenders. And I think that's just from a design and construct point of view, I think it's dangerous to do that because there's 95% of them are good actors, and so I just am cautious around kind of the extremes. And I think you're right. I think our summer experience this year was far superior to what it's been.
Which was surprising.
Well, it's because
People came out of their house for the first time and
but true, but it's the bad actors, for whatever reason, behave better, right?
Well, I think it takes a while for ordinances to sink in too, for people. And for them to realize that this is how it works in Scarborough. And with any of these ordinances, it does go back to enforcement or someone following up, because I know with fireworks, people are like, yeah, they'll never find me. We shoot them off by the time the cops show up, we're all done. And I don't know. I know. And that's going to be a tough one because it's hard finding police officers these days, and we're running so much short staff, and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, so to me, it's like, just leave well enough alone, in my opinion. We've got what we've got, seems to work for the moment. Fireworks thing as we get again into spring or whatever. Or as you say, let's see what happens with New Year's, but we never seem to hear about fireworks on New Year's. Do you get them on Pine Point? Yeah.
It's nothing like.
Because I don't hear them up in North Scarborough.
Usually that's because our friends from the south have left.
Well, that's true. They go down south and shoot them off.
Incidentally, I had the occasion to meet with the Higgins Beach Association this week on a number of topics. Interestingly, they didn't bring up fireworks. They loaded me up with a bunch of things they wanted to talk about. And they said, well, how about fireworks? Because I had a sense that was a fairly positive experience, and they were ecstatic.
Yeah.
I think in large part, they did a very good job themselves of getting the word out.
Yeah.
And I think they said there were 2 incidences,
Yeah.
both of which the people were just unknowing. And as soon as they were told, they were embarrassed and quickly complied. So they're over the moon in terms of how that worked for them.
All right, I think we beat that one.
What's that look?
I was just trying to extend your meeting a little longer.
Yeah, no need to extend meetings. All right. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Katarina.
Yes, thank you.